107.5 WGCI, the Shy's number one for hip-hop and R&B. We are the WGCI Morning Show with the Destin legend Leon Rogers, the beautiful Kendra G, myself, the shortest damn man in Chicago, Kyle. And right now we have somebody who's been in the news a lot the last couple of days, right in the middle of this entire Jussie Smollett case and situation. And here to shed some light on us this morning, we have attorney Patricia Holmes. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing great.
Let's get you straight.
Get your mic together. I know you've been doing a lot of media runs. We got to get you media ready.
So obviously you understand that everybody is really shocked and surprised the way this thing has gone down over the past couple of days. A lot of people were looking at Jussie like, you know, he committed this crime. You know what I mean? The police department say he committed this crime. He always claimed that he was innocent. And here we are now with the state's attorney's office dropping all charges. And obviously you have something to do with that.
Well, correct. Here's the deal. You just said it. The police said he's guilty. Mm-hmm. That's not how our system works, right? Anybody, no matter who it is, if you are accused, you are innocent unless and until you are proven guilty in a court of law. There's a jury instruction that says you are innocent. The jury must consider you innocent all throughout trial, all throughout deliberations. They can't find you guilty unless and until after all the evidence is presented, they find beyond a reasonable doubt that you're guilty. But what I'm hearing is everybody says, Eddie Johnson said he's guilty, so he must be guilty. And let's start from there. That's not fair. It's not just. It's not right.
Mm-hmm.
So according to Eddie Johnson, he said he's recounting what the boys told him, the two African-American boys that were picked up, and they were the first, suspects in this whole hate crime. So what Eddie Johnson has always said is that this is what they told us. And that, I guess, I don't know too much about the court system. That's why I'm so happy you're here to explain it. But what they've been saying recently is they had evidence. They brought the evidence to the grand jury. And then the grand jury decided to charge him with these charges if they didn't have enough evidence, and the grand jury wouldn't have moved forward. So that's where it gets complicated.
Yeah, well, let me explain.
Okay.
So someone calls the police on Jussie's behalf. He didn't call the police. The police show up. Jussie tells what happened to him. The police look for the individuals. They find the individuals. The individuals tell the police a story. All of a sudden, the police say Jussie's guilty and the individuals are correct. They go to the grand jury with a sliver of the evidence, which is what I'm hearing them say. That's not me. I'm not in the grand jury. The grand jury is a unilateral process. The state is the only person in the grand jury. The burden of proof in the grand jury is preponderance of evidence. It's just a little bit. That's all you need. Okay, so they indict him 16 times for the same conduct, disorderly conduct. 16 times he gets indicted. That's not proof. The jury instruction says that too. The indictment is not proof of guilt. The indictment is just the vehicle by which you get into court. You still need evidence. And the evidence must still be proof beyond a reasonable doubt. So Jussie's word against those guys' words is not proof beyond a reasonable doubt unless a jury says so. And in this case, there is no jury. No jury has said proof beyond a reasonable doubt. So there's nobody who should be saying he's guilty because he hasn't been proven guilty. He's innocent.
So at this point, can he charge the brothers with a crime for lying on him and getting these charges brought up on him and making him go through this whole situation? If they were actually the ones that committed this crime against him, is Jussie in a position to say, yo, I want to bring these two brothers to the court?
He could ask the state to prosecute or to investigate. But then who's going to believe that since the police have embraced the brothers, right? So we're in a situation where they have said what they think, what they believe, as if it's the bottom line, right? That's not fair to Jussie. So then where is his recourse? Where is his recourse? He doesn't have one when he's being put on, on the pedestal and saying, you are guilty. He's wearing the scarlet letter, right? Why? He's the victim, and then all of a sudden it's flipped on its head, and he has to prove the other way around. Again, not fair, not just. We don't want a system where anybody gets treated like that. That's part of what's wrong with our overall judicial system, is that the accused person is immediately presumed guilty. And then you're working backwards from there. That's not how it should be. You should be presumed innocent, and then the state has the burden. And the state should embrace that burden. It's their burden. Yeah. When I was a prosecutor, I didn't mind laying out my case to you because it's my burden. And if you show me where I can't meet my burden, fine.
Leon, did you?
So I want to know then why, after everything is taking place, in your opinion, dealing in law, what were the police looking for then? Like, what did they want to happen? If you know, because even though he's walked away with this, he gave the $10,000, he did the community service, correct? Why are the mayor and the police superintendent so enraged? What did they want to be said? Did they just want the admission of guilt, or what? Were they looking for something else to give him probation or something? Because it really was no jail time going to happen behind it, correct?
Well, so I don't know what they were looking for. I have no idea. I think part of the issue that they have is a lack of communication. The fact that, the state didn't tell them in advance what they were planning to do. The state has full discretion to dismiss charges. They dismiss charges every day in courtrooms, every day. And they don't call up the chief of police and say, I'm going to dismiss the charge. They don't call anybody other than maybe their supervisors in their line. They use their discretion. That's their job. And in this case, they did that. So I presume that they're upset that they didn't know. But again, it gets us back in that loop that they feel like they say it. I believe he's guilty. Their beliefs are irrelevant. Their beliefs are not weighted evidence. Their beliefs mean nothing. You can believe anything you want, but when you're in the judicial system, when you're in the justice system, you have to treat people as if they're innocent from the beginning. Even if you're gathering evidence, you still have to gather that evidence with the presumption of innocence, and they didn't. So what they're looking for from Jussie, I have no idea.
And then now, like you said with Eddie Johnson, I have a lot of respect for Eddie Johnson too. I would not lie. I would not lie about that. He's been on our show. So I did have to kind of listen to what Eddie Johnson was saying, because these are two men who I have a lot of respect for. So for me personally, I was torn. Evidence being sealed, though, do you think the evidence coming out would have cleared Jussie completely? Because then we could just see what Eddie Johnson saw, and then we can make our own conclusion, and then everything is done. But with the evidence being sealed, now it still has that, like, what the hell happened, statement.
Well, if it was a full set of evidence following a trial where you got all of the evidence, you might be able to say, oh, now I see what happened. But the only evidence in the file right now is one-sided. The only evidence is inaccurate and incomplete. So because the state dismissed the case, that incomplete information should not be out there. Ask yourself, if the police right now arrested you for something you didn't do, and you had to go to court several times, and then the state said, oh, you know what, my bad, we shouldn't have prosecuted you, or we think we should have prosecuted you, but we don't have enough evidence. Or we decided for whatever reason, we aren't going to prosecute you. We dismissed the case. So now you've got a case that's dismissed. Do you want your fellow folks to go and grab the file and pull from the file and send stuff out? Or do you, as a private citizen, want the ability to say, you know what, this was all a big mistake, seal the file, and let me move on with my life as an innocent person? Jussie has a right to do that. That's the law.
I'm sorry, just in this particular line of question, when they sealed a file like they did for Jussie's case, and you said that other people probably would want that same treatment, is that standard practice?
Yes, it is. Okay. It is that we didn't do anything. Put it like this. If I had not made the motion to seal, he could have sued me for malpractice, right? Because I'm not doing my job to protect him from people having that file and it's one-sided. That's my job to do, is to ask the court to seal the file. I did that. It's a standard practice. There's nothing untoward about it. There's nothing political about it. He didn't get any extra favors because he's a movie star. Anybody, you've got a whole movement out there of people who want their records expunged because they want to be able to get a job. and they've got some, traffic ticket or whatever it is that's keeping them from getting a job. They ought to be able to do that. There are laws now that allow people to do that, to expunge their record, clean the record. Why should he have this on his record when it's dismissed?
So one thing I want to bring up is since everything happened this week, the prosecutor came and said he wasn't exonerated, that basically he forfeited his $10,000 bond, and he also did community service. But now the Rainbow Push Coalition is denying that he did community service in order to support him not going to jail. It said in a statement that I'm looking at right now, it says there was no court order community service here from Jussie Smollett. He has during the period of disruption to his life and livelihood, Jussie has spent time here helping to advance this important work. But there was no court order community service here. So they're saying that he didn't do the community service in order to get this charges dismissed.
He was just there kicking it.
Unlike what the prosecutor is saying, he clearly said that Jussie had to forfeit his $10,000 bond and do community service.
There is no court-ordered community service. The court dismissed the case because the prosecution walked in, and the prosecution said that they have considered his involvement, his volunteer involvement in the community, and all of the circumstances surrounding the case, and that it was a just and fair resolution to the matter to dismiss the case. Now, the fact that he is a person who volunteers his time, was that considered? Yes. How was it considered? Because I, as his lawyer, called everybody I could think of. Hey, what kind of guy is Jussie? Oh, Jussie's always around. He's always volunteering.
Yeah, that's what
he gave money. He didn't even want publicity for it.
That's
he
the
did
one thing
this.
he
did that.
Not to cut you off, but that's been the hard part for me, because the person that I know sincerely, like I know things that Jussie has done that are so positive that he won't attach his name to,
exactly,
because he doesn't want the attention. So it's always been like this back and forth of what do I believe, who's telling the truth. So I guess now most people want to see, okay, does Jussie, I know you said that he's in a weird situation, but does he want the boys to now go to jail for what they did to him?
Right. He wants justice.
He does
but what he does not want is he does not want to try them in the public eye like he was. The kind of person you know Jussie to be is the kind of person he is. He's not trying to flip this so that everybody else is going through the same hell that he's going through. He wants things to happen the way they ought to happen, not the way they happened to him. So if these guys attacked him, as they said they did, and the state wants to prosecute, we don't know.
Oh, so only the state can prosecute. Jussie can't prosecute.
He can't bring a criminal charge. He's not a prosecutor. We can't bring a criminal charge.
Okay.
So there's nothing we can do, in terms of a criminal case. Now, if people keep defaming him, he may have some legal rights there. But that's something for a defamation lawyer to review. I'm not a defamation lawyer. The bottom line is he wants fairness. If you listen to his statement that he made yesterday, he said, look, he even thanked the state for doing the right thing, because they did the right thing here. We can't miss that, because everybody wants to know. What people are upset about is that they didn't have notice that this matter was going to take place yesterday. So why? Because it was advanced to a different date. Well, Jussie doesn't owe the public, hey, my case is coming up. Right. Because then everybody would say, oh, he's just trying to get publicity.
Right.
Well, so then when he doesn't get the publicity,
then
he
they
does. Now they mad. Now you mad. Why you didn't tell me that your case was coming up?
It was so much information that came out, and I haven't spoken to Jussie since, so I don't really know. I haven't heard from him directly. But did he ever say that it was two white men that harmed him? Because I think when the two black guys got picked up, that's when everything went haywire. Like, wait a minute, we thought we were talking about two white men here. So we never said they were two white men.
I don't know that he ever said, I've never seen anything where he said it was two white men. The only thing that I've heard and don't know is that he said he saw white on their face. And what we do know is that one of the guys is an actor and has worn a white face, right? In some video thing.
Like makeup or mask.
Like a makeup or a mask or something. Oh. So we don't know, right? We don't know. But he has never said, as far as I know, yeah, it was 2 white guys with red MAGA hats that attacked me. We don't know where that came from.
So that you're saying that you don't know where that came from. So
no idea.
Well, let me ask, in your honest opinion, as you're Chicagoan.
I'm a Chicago.
Okay, in your honest opinion, do you think that the city has the propensity for an attack like that? Like, living here all my life, last time I heard of something like that was Lenard Clark in Bridgeport when he was jumped by the teens and was left mentally disabled. If in fact that is the case, do you think that the city has a propensity for MAGA hat wearing white men to jump somebody in Streeterville?
I have no idea. No. I mean, I don't know. The bottom line is the 2 brothers are alleged to have confessed that they did jump him, right? Why is nobody talking about that? Right. Yeah, why is it, but they're not telling the truth?
Because they ran to the police first and cooperated,
well, let me
now they get
and not defending Eddie Johnson, but we had him on the show. I just want to say to that part, according to what Eddie Johnson said, they were able to prove the allegations that the boys gave them. So when the boys said, we had this, they were able to
So they had a trial that I don't know about?
I don't know.
That's how you prove something.
Right.
That's how you prove something in my day.
That's how
you go to trial, you rack up 12 people, you present your case, and the 12 people go deliberate, and they come back and they say, yes, you proved your case. That's how you prove a case.
Attorney Patricia Holmes is here, Jussie Smollett's lawyer. When situations like this happen and it is tried in the media, does it make your job more difficult? I feel like we're in this age now where information gets leaked to the public before it gets to the courtroom, like you just said. Like, how difficult is it to manage through all of that muddy water to get to the actual courtroom?
It is extremely difficult, which is why it's important that everybody follow the rules, right? So there are Supreme Court rules on trial publicity that tell you what you can and cannot say, what you should and should not say. There are rules of professional responsibility that tell you what you should do and what you should not do. There are constitutional rules, there are laws, there are supposed to be fail-safes and protections that stop people from being railroaded. And the bottom line is, it's why we see so many Black and brown people who get locked up because when they walk in the door, it's you're guilty. Now let's figure it out from there. Right. Prove your innocence. That's not how it works. That's just not how the system works. And in this situation, Jussie had lawyers. He had a team of lawyers who sat down with the evidence, who figured it out, who talked to the prosecution, who did what they were supposed to do in this situation after looking at everything. They walked into the courtroom, they dismissed the case. They didn't call the press and say, hey, the case is going to be advanced, show up. The only reason that news press was there was something else happening in the courtroom. And so when we walked in, there were cameras already there for that matter. They saw Jussie, and then they said, something's going on, and people started to kind of flock in. Folks are upset that they didn't know, and by that I mean the public is upset they didn't know, but then they want to be kept informed, yet they're forming opinions that are not helpful.
I don't honestly think the public is upset about that. Maybe the police department could be, but I don't think the public is upset about that. I think most people were tired of talking about it. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
At the end of the day, and I think a lot of people were like, I do think a lot of people still think he's guilty, and that for whatever reason, the state just decided to dismiss the charge. My brother was texting me from Philadelphia this morning like, they must have something on the state's attorney's office for this to go down this way. I think people think more along those lines than being upset about what happened.
A conspiracy, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I mean, you can't change everybody's mind.
Right.
You can't convince everybody. That's why we have a system that says you have to be fair to every person who is caught up in the system, every person. And you have to keep an open mind. How would you like it if a judge, when you walked in the courtroom, said, oh, okay, you're guilty, and all you did was walk in the door?
Red light tickets. Chicago, you hear? That thing be clicking. I don't be nowhere near the intersection, and it flash. And I walk in, y'all be like $100. We don't want to hear.
It's
Stop
got your
playing.
driver's license.
Yes.
Well, I do hope that it's over. I do hope that he could get his life back. You know, like Kyle said, there are people that are just still on both sides of the spectrum still that have a lot of questions. I think the evidence, people want to see the evidence. Like, that was the biggest thing. I really hope that, you know, this can surpass him and he can go back on with his life.
Yeah, people wanted a trial.
Yeah.
That's what they wanted. They wanted a trial. They wanted the drama. There was no trial. A trial in this case would not have been just to him. It would not have been fair to anybody.
And what would have been the end result? Like what I'm saying, there's like no jail time.
Exactly.
I mean, it would have just been a bunch of taxpayers' money spent on something that.
But you're assuming that I wasn't gonna have him found not guilty, right?
Okay, yeah, and you're right. No.
Right.
I'm just saying. But I think most Chicagoans, and I was saying this to Kendra earlier, most Chicagoans were upset because this city gets a bad rap already about the gun violence and everything.
Exactly.
Now you're going to add on top of that two white men in Streeterville with MAGA hats on, jumped the African-American male. Oh, by the way, that happens to be gay. That's just going to add to everything in Chicago. And then at the end of the day, other Chicagoans were mad, like, you guys are putting all this energy into this case to get this man. Meanwhile, the 4-year-old girl gets shot in back of the yards. No suspects or anything. So I see where the different anger came from the city of Chicago, but I think you're saying, like, you can't let public opinion sway you from the facts.
Exactly. And how is that Jussie's fault? He didn't say, hey, I need 50 police officers to go over here and do. That wasn't his decision.
I will say this, though. If it had gone to trial and through the process he was found not guilty, I think that would have just, a lot of people would have been like, okay, good, thank you.
And some people would have been saying,
but some conspiracy.
Exactly.
Okay, well, maybe I don't know
you can't change anybody's mind, right? Some people have different opinions. But what you can do is stop the folks who have the power from jumping out ahead of the case and influencing public opinion without evidence, without proof beyond a reasonable doubt, and not doing things the way they're supposed to do them according to the law.
Well, I'm getting my retainer fee ready because I need these red light tickets.
I know you gotta
I'm walking in with her. Come on, give me these red light
One last
tickets.
question before you go. Do you know if Jussie has spoken to the two brothers? Because they were his trainers. So have they had any communication since all this?
Not to my knowledge, and I would definitely not advise him to have any communication with them.
Amen. Right.
I don't know why they would even reach out to him.
And then and the police don't need to look for any more further suspects because they admitted to the crime. So there shouldn't be a who did this search then, correct?
As far as we know, yeah.
Okay.
I'm not trying to put anything on them. I'm just saying what has been told to me, which is they confessed to everything basically that Jussie said happened, jumping on him and everything.
Right.
So the state needs to go after them.
We got to go. Last question. Can we all have your number for a retainer? Because
I just told you.
I'm like, I don't know. Let me tell you something.
Riley, Safer Homes, and
my tickets for you.
Chicago attorney for Jussie Smollett, attorney Patricia Holmes. We appreciate you taking the time and sitting in and talking with us and explaining your side of the story this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks.